You wouldn't step in the ring with an arm tied behind your back. You wouldn't step to the plate with 2 strikes. You wouldn't start a game down by 14 points. That wouldn't be fair. In life, like sports, fairness should be fundamental. But for most kids of color and families, life is not fair. 15 million youth live in poverty in the U.S. Kids of color are twice as likely to live without enough park space. And schools in underserved neighborhoods are defunding sports programs. How can our children play fair if they can't play at all? Change starts with play equity, a social justice movement to bring sports to kids left behind by the system. Sports breaks down barriers, improves kids' health, academics, and boosts self-esteem. Change communities for good, one child at a time. There's room for hope. Let's give all kids the vital human right to play. No child should start from behind. Never again. Join the Play Equity movement. Spread the word. Donate. Let's level the playing field together.
Hi, I'm Kevin Frazier from Entertainment Tonight. I also once was a sportscaster, so I do have a reason for being here. I'm so excited to welcome our audience to this, the 5th and final panel of the 2020 LA84 Foundation and Play Equity Fund Youth Sports Summit. Thank you for being here. Thank you for joining us. The first 4 panel conversations focused on insight and perspectives about athletes, coaches, and team leaders. Today's conversation will focus on the progress of women in sports and building greater equity, which I think is one of the most important subjects we can have. We have assembled a great panel for you today, and so let's hop right in. Joining us first is Thayer Lavielle. She is Executive Vice President of Talent, Marketing, and Operations for the Collective Wasserman, which is the women's division of Wasserman, which Thayer helped launch back in 2019. For more than 20 years, she has negotiated marketing and branding deals and strategies for world-class athletes. And also, Thayer's negotiated over $250 million in talent contracts and brand property and venue deals in sports and entertainment. Thayer, thank you for joining us and being here, even when your team is playing right now. I know that.
Thank you.
All right. Also joining us, the 2012 WNBA #1 draft pick and the 2016 MVP, Nneka Ogwumike of the Los Angeles Sparks. I think she was described as part Magic Johnson, part LeBron James. I'd say smarter than both those guys because she's also the president of the WNBA Players Association right now. Thank you, Necca, for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah. Also joining us all the way from Tokyo right now, where it is a very different time, Janelle Reiko Sasaki, and she serves as the EY Global Women Athletes Business Network leader. In her current role, Janelle is a champion for women athletes and entrepreneurs. Janelle also spent over a decade as a former competitive gymnast. Welcome, Janelle, and thank you for getting up at a crazy hour to be a part of this.
Hi, Kevin. Thank you so much. And I'm just so honored for the LA84 Foundation for inviting me here today.
All right. And also joining us, Julie Uhrman. She's the founder and president of Angel City Soccer, and her background includes executive roles with several video game companies and media franchises. But most importantly, LA has been waiting for their NWSL franchise. They're coming in the spring of 2020. We cannot wait. We're hoping that you'll play in downtown LA, but I know you got to work all that out. But I'm just telling you that everybody has been waiting on this, and we're happy that you're finally here.
One of the places we're looking at playing. We are thrilled to be here. The best players in the world, these women soccer players, need a home in Los Angeles, and we're excited to bring it to them.
No, the support is there and they're ready, and we're excited. I'm excited to get my season tickets once things kick off. I will be there to see it. So ladies, let's start. And I'm going to ask all of you, but I'll start with Necca. What is the most pressing issue facing women's pro sports today?
Well, Kevin, it's tough to narrow it down.
Yeah, no.
But I'd have to say that not just the pay equity, but the equity in experience. As a pro athlete, we do the same thing that the men do. And a lot of times, uh, that oftentimes isn't equated to what everyone sees on the court. But quite frankly, we're working hard, we're putting our bodies out there, and a lot of times even more so in that we have to play 12-month seasons all over the globe. But as I've experienced being a professional, I'm entering my 10th year next year. I've realized too, being a part of the grassroots organizations that kind of led me to being a professional, there's so much lacking or so much we have to learn at the grassroots level that allows women the channels and the resources to be able to exceed at such high levels while also garnering, I guess you could say, the support, the partnerships, and the organizations that should follow once we become professionals. That we have a long way to go, but I do feel as though we are well on our way as far as the resources and the equity plays into the elite professional sports for women.
As you talked just a second ago about your new team here in LA, and we talk about women's stake in the sport, in the sports world, what does it take to launch a franchise that will compete for people in the seats with the men's franchises in a big city?
LA is a really unique environment. You know it better than anyone. There are 9 professional sports teams here, and USC and UCLA, which you could consider professional teams as well. And what you'll find, though, is you don't have one individual in LA that only cheers for one of those teams. In fact, they cheer for many of them. They're as much of a Lakers fan as they're a Sparks fan as they're a Kings fan. And even in this city, you have 2 professional MLS clubs. And so our job is very clear. We have to build an emotional connection with this fan base. We have to build a community that believes not only our players and the team, but what we stand for and how we want to deliver on our ability to have an impact in our community with the support and partnership that we form with LA84 and their Play Equity Fund. And we have to put on a really good show. So it's about creating an entertaining experience, creating an experience where fans believe in us just as much as we believe in them and think bigger about the sport and the contributions that we can make. And you'll see us do that as we continue to build this club leading up to our April 22 launch.
Now, Thayer, to you, and what is the thought process behind the deals that you form for, and the deals that you may do and the strategies you form for some of the female athletes out there? Because we look at someone like Serena Williams, but for every Serena Williams, there are other athletes who should be getting attention and also should be getting deals.
Yeah, thanks. And thanks for having me here. Every athlete is unique and different. And in the women's space in particular, there are, what we find at Wasserman is the ones that we represent are not only uniquely gifted on their field of play, but they're also uniquely gifted in being attached to different causes and different reasons for helping to grow the game. It's very rare that you find a woman athlete who just doesn't care about the kind of the bigger fight, because we've all had to fight the fight along the way. That being said, and looking at it, and candidly, the pandemic, while devastating on so many levels, has been an opportunity for a lot of our women athletes to really get behind themselves and launch their own brands in a way that has not been that active before, because all of a sudden people are sitting home able to see and hear these athletes on a more day-to-day basis, and they're curious as to what they're saying. And so when you're looking at a very compressed timeline, and when you're looking at everybody sitting at home, and then you add on and layer on a whole bunch of different social justice topics, issues, crises, if you will, athletes all of a sudden have a voice. And so I believe that in some ways the power of the sport, particularly women's sports, is almost inverting, in that the athletes are starting to really lead the conversation, where before it was, I'm a fan of basketball, I'm a fan of the WNBA or the NBA. Well, now it's, I'm a fan of Nneka's, or I'm a fan of Sue Bird's, or I'm a fan of Alex Morgan's. And that drives people into. So from doing a deal perspective, it's truly like, how are these athletes really reaching their audiences? And then how do you find brands that want to be a part of that conversation, but want to be a part of that conversation with intention and purpose, that are going to reach the same fans that are interested in these players?
Hmm. I want to ask Janelle on a world view, because you're in Tokyo right now. And so
Sure.
I'm sure that there you would see like Naomi Osaka is revered and loved by so many. And, she's in the middle of in a big tournament. But what is it like on the world view for women athletes? Because I feel like sometimes the United States has been behind.
Sure. Yeah, thank you. That's a great question. And I wanted to share first the purpose of our Women Athletes Business Network globally.
Yeah, sure.
It's to unlock the leadership potential of women athletes to a second career in business and entrepreneurship. And one of the challenges that we hear from our current and retired athletes around the world is that the transition or the pivot for top athletes from sport to a second career is very hard, that transition. And, traditionally there is limited support for athletes as they move into the new and sometimes unfamiliar world outside of sport. And so that's our purpose, right? Is this lack of guidance and the perspective that can leave athletes feeling disoriented and uncertain about how to best take up the challenges of life after sport. So, as a solution, and I want to kind of get into the solution part, is to overcome this is we focus on mentoring, which is a key building block to change your mindset. So it really helps with the transition from athlete mode to a broader perspective and how to help the athletes translate their athletic accomplishments into business excellence.
Mm. All right, I want to ask Nneka, in talking about excellence, you have to be really proud. You're, as the president of the WNBA Players Association, you have to be proud of not only what the ladies have done on the court, but also how they've stood up for social issues and all the change going on. But I thought Megan Rapinoe wrote an amazing article in the Players Tribune about how, while there has been focus on women in one segment, there hasn't been a focus on women in another segment, whereas like the US soccer team would get so much attention and deals and a lot of love. But at the same time, she's watching her partner, Sue Bird, light it up and play her behind off on a game on a court where she says many of the players now are African-American or Black, and they aren't getting the same amount of attention.
Yeah, that was an awesome piece by Megan. And I had the pleasure, obviously, of being in the bubble and being able to be within arm's reach of all of the women in there, of which we have several Wasserman clients. And I think that one reason why I love being with Wasserman is because everyone who is represented by Wasserman has that awareness, has that cognizance. And we're leaders in our own right, to be very honest. But I'd have to say that this is something that is lost on a lot of people, but it's an experience that happens to us, in everything that we do. Even as we had a USA tour last year, where we had several games to be played leading up to what should have been the Olympics this year. We struggled to get that notoriety, to get that attention on us. And it paled in comparison to the women when with the U.S. women's soccer team, when they were competing. And they had millions of people at their games, millions of people watching. And it's just so confusing to us because we have the longest standing record as an Olympic team in women's basketball. And like you said, Megan said it best, and it's an elephant in the room to many, but not to us. And it's a metaphor to exactly what we wanted to come in with the bubble, with amplifying our voices about, where exactly Black women fall in that totem pole, most especially in sports. Even in that 1% of coverage that sports is covering, of that 1%, we are probably getting the 1% of that 1% when it comes to Black female athletes. And that's something that we feel needs to change. And we understand too, that we're a league not fully made of Black female athletes. We're 70+% more, or more than, Black athletes. And we have that smaller percentage of athletes that are not Black that understand that and that serve the best, I feel, example of what it means to be an ally and to step up for those who aren't necessarily getting the same treatment as you. And so it was an amazing article, and it's something that hits the hearts of many of the women in the WNBA. but all we know is to fight for each other. And so that's kind of what we're doing and what we continue to do.
Mm-hmm. Julie, how do you bring that spirit to the NWSL, and how will they pick up the mantle where the WNBA, when they leave off and this season ends, this great season that they've had in the bubble?
These players are cultural icons now, and you guys have transcended sort of the sports franchise IP moniker. It's like they're their own platforms, they're their own brands, they have their own social initiatives. They are not just known for the points that they score on the court or the goals that they score on the field, but who they are and what they stand for and what they want to bring to the world. And so I think it's my job, as well as all the other owners and everyone who's part of the NWSL, to actually amplify these voices, right? To be able to talk about these players and tell their stories. I mean, obviously it's something that the Olympics does incredibly well. And I think it's something that the NWSL needs to start doing, is starting to tell the stories of the players, the fans, the community, the team, the league, how soccer fits into the global ecosystem of soccer. But we are so fortunate in that we have such incredible athletes, role models, cultural icons, and they all are embodied in the same people. Alex Morgan, Megan Rapinoe, you can go down the list, where we should promote them and push them and help them achieve their goals in the same way that they're helping our achieve goals, which is putting a phenomenal product on the field and having a meaningful impact to our youth and our community, and showing up where no one else is showing up.
Mm-hmm. There, how do the athletes capitalize on what they've built, especially the WNBA players that are your clients? How do they capitalize on what they have done, and how do they push that forward, and at the same time don't turn off the customer base?
Yeah, look, that's a great question. And actually, I think I'd love to also hear what Nneka has to say about it, because each sport is so different from the other. In particular, as it relates to the the WNBA. Sorry, it's been a long day. They have been a real leader this pandemic and this kind of timeout. They have not only come back and done the first virtual draft, they've led in social justice messaging and kind of campaign, if you will. They have led in obviously a bubble scenario, and really you're able to see this all for one for all mentality. Taking advantage of that is something that will also come down not only from the group but the individual. So how does Wasserman and our agents really take advantage of Nneka's unique abilities versus Sue's unique abilities versus Diana Taurasi's unique abilities to go out and market to those women? We did actually create, and Necca, you can certainly talk about this incredible wobble box, as we called it, this gift box that was just filled with all sorts of wonderful items from all sorts of brands that, knowing that these players would be stuck within this bubble for days and days and days on end, to be able to give them kind of like you're going away to camp, this kind of gift box from mom. And some of these companies are now doing deals with some of our players. So it turns out to be well. There's also opportunities, obviously, through social media for these women and really all women to up their game as influencers. But, we also have clients across all different areas of our business, and women in particular, who are creating media companies, who are creating clothing brands, who are creating all sorts of other opportunities for themselves. Because back to Nneka's point, the issues are, exposure and equity, kind of access to things. It's awareness is a huge issue for women's sports, and pay. If you're not paid properly, whether that's a sponsorship or in just your day-to-day pay, they're playing 12 months a year, to Nneka's earlier point. And to boot, you can't live a sustainable life because you're just constantly grinding, and that's just tough on your body. Did I answer your question?
No, it did. I mean, in many ways. And I want to ask Janelle, then what are the next steps for some of these players as they move on into the next phase of their career? If there are some who this was their moment and now they move on, what is the next? How do you navigate the world once you step away?
Yeah, so we, as I mentioned, we really put a focus on mentoring, and we pair them with a business mentor based on their career interests or what they're thinking about, what's next. And in addition to that, we do a lot of, upskilling in critical skills such as digital. I mean, no ifs, ands, or buts. That's the next skill that, we want the athletes to make sure that they're competitive in terms of creating that digital mindset and working in digital tools. Also, financial literacy is really critical, and giving them the exposure to networking outside of their sport, such as entrepreneurship. And what we found, we did a study with ESPNW with 400 C-suite women. What we found is that 94% of them played competitive sport, and 52% played at the university level. I mean, the data is clear, and that's why we, are supporting this effort, is that sports equips you as a woman to get to the highest level of business and leadership. And clearly, if you want more women in leadership, focus on women athletes. We also see a trend that more women athletes are getting into entrepreneurship as well. 34% of our last cohort of 20 athletes around the world want to do something around social impact entrepreneurship and also work in business. And once they're in business, and I have to tell you this, Kevin, this data point, our findings show that women athletes, once they're hired in the workplace, the annual wages of former athletes are about 7% higher than non-athletes. So clearly, more females in leadership, there's value add to the workplace with these women athletes.
I love that. Thayer, real quick, do you push your clients to become not just players, but entrepreneurs also?
If it's in their blood, for sure. The collective was born out of really being able to provide incremental opportunities that an individual athlete may not see. So if there are athletes who feel creative enough and entrepreneurial enough to actually start a business, whether that's a clothing brand or a media company or a toy company or a food company, we get behind all of that and help them in every single way that we can. But some athletes are just happy to not do that also. It's the same way that some athletes have no interest in social media. They just don't know, they don't want to have a personality on it, and they don't feel like doing it, and that's okay too.
Nneka, I'm going to ask Nneka and Julie this question. We have seen that there are now great athletes when it comes to women's sports. In many instances, like soccer, the women's teams are better than the men's team. But will it follow the same path to build up, to build that audience, to build the scale, to build the viewership, and to bring in that money? Will it follow that path like the men's game, or will there be some revolution, or will it never catch up? And I'll start with Julie first.
Question. I mean, the NWSL was the first professional league back during COVID. They did a Challenge Cup. It was about a 28, 30-day Challenge Cup, and the ratings far exceeded all the other leagues that came back. So head to head, the NWSL beat, Nneka, the WNBA, it beat the MLS, it beat the EPL games for that weekend. It far exceeded that. And the ratings have held on CBS and CBS Sportsnet. So part of it's an issue of reporting, right? We all hear the stat that only 4% of all women's sports is reported on. So we have to fix that. But the onus is also on us to build awareness. And again, to tell stories and build this product that people want to watch. And so one of the reasons that we do have a large investor base, and we have an investor base of people from Hollywood and tech and venture and entertainment, is because we want to be able to use their platforms to amplify our team and to amplify our stories and to build awareness for what it is we're doing. We need to be part of the solution in the same way we need the fans to buy tickets and show up to games to be part of the solution. And we need brands to be part of the solution as well. The fact that the NWSL Challenge Cup did more than 500,000 viewers, almost twice that of some of the other league opening matches, says something, and people just need to then pay attention and start drawing those parallels. We hope that the work that we're going to do, telling stories and leveraging our investors like Serena Williams and Eva Longoria, Natalie Portman, who's a founding investor, is a founder with myself, and Karen Uhrman, who's a venture capitalist here in Los Angeles, and Alexis Ohanian, their 3-year-old daughter, Olympia Ohanian. I mean, we have this incredible network of investors whose platforms we can leverage to build awareness for our players and our team and our league. And then we just need the sports world to wake up and pay attention. And I don't want to have to search through 4 different screens on, sports.com to find NWSL. I mean, by that point, I don't care anymore. And I'm an owner. Right?
I think you bring up a great point, because I have sat in many meetings, whether it be at ESPN or Fox Sports, and you bring up, oh my God, I just saw the greatest game in the final, in the women's Final Four, or, we just saw a great soccer game, and it always gets relegated to the back. Nneka, what is that like when you know that there was a WNBA game that was better than anything that happened in the NBA that night, but you turn on the TV and you don't see it?
I think it speaks to the I guess the number that we got just this week. We found that across all networks there was 68% higher viewership of WNBA games than any other season, and that speaks to what Julie and Thayer is saying. It's not rocket science. This was the most TV games we've ever had on TV. So if we're on TV, people will watch us. And it's really that simple. And as an athlete, it's so frustrating when people ask us, well, what do you guys want? What do you need to make it better? I don't know. I play. That's other people's jobs. And it just really confuses me how you're asking the product, how they can be better than what's already being played, when we see time and time again that the game is better. It's fun to watch. I do tell people, though, obviously pre-pandemic, going to a WNBA game is extremely exciting compared to watching it on TV. But in a case where you can only watch it on TV, there was no option but to put more games on. And with more games, more people have an opportunity to watch us. It's not even necessarily that nobody wants to watch us. It's like Julie and Thayer said, people cannot find us. Mm-hmm. Why do I have to be searching through the channels and then look to watch a WNBA game on ESPN News? And that's no knock on ESPN, but I mean, who's turning it on to watch the game on ESPN News? And I think just having the cognizance of putting us out there, covering us, and naturally the revolution will follow. And as athletes, we understand that very much so, which is why you have such a diversification of personalities of these women. That's why people get to know women athletes so much more, because we understand the importance of partnerships, organizations, and sustainability. It's not just a one-hit wonder type of thing. This is who we are. It's who we've always been. And if people see us and have the opportunity to see us, then they're going to discover just how amazing the women and the leagues that they're playing in are.
Janelle, is that true that there is a better connection with the the female personalities? I know for my boys, when they have sat and I buy courtside seats to watch Necca play, they are so impressed at the skill level and the physicality. And they look and they say, okay, I'm like, yeah, that's basketball, boys. That's real basketball. But how do those female athletes connect with the greater audience out there, especially men?
Yes, and I have to tell you, I was able to secure Olympic tickets for Tokyo 2020 +1 next year for women's basketball, the gold medal match. So
congratulations.
Yeah, so I'm really excited. Exactly. I'm waiting for you, Necca. So yeah, and and that's one of our goals too for our network, is to provide this visibility of the, women athletes brand out there, and what value that they can add to business in the workplace and beyond, and make a social impact. We have a lot of women, wanting to be, guest speakers and facilitators, and, really, showing that they're more than just athletes, right? That, they can do more. And so our, role is to really connect them with media and opportunities and networking opportunities to get them connected to the decision makers in the workplace and society.
When will there be a like-mic moment for women's sports?
Oh gosh, well, I think we've already seen a lot of them, but unfortunately, I don't think they get their proper due. I will say, also reverting back to your past question, one of the things that we've seen, and we just launched a think tank in a white paper, and one of the things that we've seen is that 47% of all global citizens do not trust their governments to make any forward progress on key issues. And what that means is that they're actually looking for brands to create these feelings of hope and inspiration and kind of joy and momentary escapism. And the opportunity for brands then to partner with these real life ambassadors like our women athletes is coming true every single day. So when will we see these moments? I feel like we've seen these heroic moments on the field of play many times over in every season.
Yes, but when will we see these translate into commercial success? When will I get a Necca shoe? When will I be able to go to the store and be like, oh, I'm gonna have those Neccas, that's what I'm gonna wear.
We're seeing that little by little. And I think it's a hard, Necca's agent, Lindsay Colas, is an amazing, amazing agent and has negotiated some of the most incredible firsts across all of women's sports, or really all across sports. I shouldn't even say women's sports, just sports in general. The first maternity leave clause with Nike, the first shoe with Maya Moore, the first openly gay athlete to have a shoe deal and a, Red Bull deal, like just one after another. So I feel like we are gaining on it. The challenge, I think, is the perception of the fan. So you have a completely shifting fan base happening here, Kevin. You have the traditional fan base of traditional men's viewers watching ESPN, et cetera. And then you have this rise of a young woman, Gen Z and millennials, who are going to own the economic purse. No questions asked. They are going to be in control. They'll own 2/3 of the wealth in the United States in the next decade. And yet marketers and media companies seem to be ignoring that fact, and properties seem to be ignoring that fact. So they keep trying to sell SEL licenses to 45-year-old men. They should, because they have money also. But the women that are coming up not only will have money, but they also are going to require different things out of these brands and properties. The ones that will understand them the most are the athletes, because they're the same age. So they're very fluid in how they're marketing to them. The challenge is that when you risk being a property or a brand that can be flat-footed and actually going to reach these incredibly dynamic, fearless, independent women who are candidly demanding that life serve them differently, not out of kind of a brattiness or a frivolity, I guess is the word, but out of a requirement of like, hey, you guys are leaving me with a pretty broken world. In order to go fix it, I need to do this on my terms. And therefore, sports, you're going to need to come to me in a different way. The athletes win in that in a big way. It's the properties and the brands that are going to have to start to tap dance pretty differently.
All right, Julie, how are you tap dancing differently as you woo an audience that, look, we want men to come see the NWSL games, but also there are young women growing up right now that they need those heroes that they can go see on a regular basis. How will you tap into that audience?
Exposure. I mean, it's so simple. It's just exposure. And it's like, if you can't see it, you can't be it. And if you don't know it exists, you can't see it, right? So it's making it exist. It's bringing it to them. It's bringing it to the local level. It's bringing it to the community. And as Thayer was saying, it's working with the brands. Like, we view Angel City as bigger than a game. We think of ourselves as a platform that stands for equality and impact. We are driven by passion and purpose, which we believe will lead to profitability. And we want to find brands that will help us tell our stories and build awareness for the club and the players and the teams and the fans. And one of the big announcements we actually made today with the hire of our head of corporate sponsorships, Jessica Smith, was that 10% of every sponsorship dollar that we bring in will go towards our social impact endeavors. And whether that's a cash contribution or an asset contribution or an engagement contribution, but we are making it so that everybody pays it forward to the communities and to our fan base. So we can not only grow the sport, but we can bring more young girls into the sport. We can spread the word to brown and Black communities that aren't traditionally soccer players in our case, that may not have the affluence that the sport traditionally has supported. So we're really committed to that and leading into the community to make a sizable impact.
I'm excited about that, because you can drive through LA and you see lots of girls who are Black and brown playing soccer as you get downtown, but you don't see them playing in the tournaments when you go out into the suburbs. So I'm happy to see that you guys are pitching in and doing that. Hey, Nneka, it seems like the young ladies today that are growing up are just a different breed. They're taking charge. They know their place. They come out and they say, I deserve a place just like you do. I deserve the money that you get. I deserve the shine that you are getting. Do you see that in the young women that are coming up now?
Oh, 100%. And, we even see it in our game with, these young players that are trying to, play against Diana Taurasi talking about, I can play better than you. I'm like, wait a second, it's wonderful to see the ambition. But you have, like Thayer said, you have players that understand their brand. They understand their brand. Times are definitely changing. I've had some lessons from younger players coming in, understanding the importance of authenticity, to be very honest, and I think that's why female athletes are able to be appealed to so much more, because we are diverse and we own it. And when a lot of these women come in here so empowered, and rightly so, that's pushing the dial just with that changed mindset. It's not allowing people to tell us that we should be grateful for what we already have. And that's instilled in us. And at this point, there's no going back, there's no turning back. And it's really just, to be honest, I've also learned being a Wasserman athlete, sometimes you have to be at the table. You can't make moves about me without me. And I think that's something that players are truly understanding. And most notably in the WNBA, our solidarity and our strength in numbers is very real. The way we're able to mobilize together, I think, is also something that truly distinguishes us and really kind of sets us apart in a way that we almost kind of become, I guess, the model by which you want a league to kind of, the league's players to kind of operate, push the dial, revolutionize, and truly foster change. So yeah, that attitude of I belong, I deserve, it's very much, it's through and through for female athletes, because we're always fighting for what we deserve. But I think more people are realizing it because we're refusing to remain quiet about it.
Yeah, but it is crazy that there's not a Necca or a Maya Moore shoe. Whose jumper is better? Nobody's jumper is better than Maya Moore's. Please, Janelle, I want to.
Yeah, and can I comment on that?
Okay, yes.
And this is a trend out here globally, is that when women athletes have that platform, and women athletes speak, people are listening now. Especially business, and business can learn from them. Yet, however, there's no Title IX, unfortunately, in the professional world. So it really does take advocacy and champion of these women athletes. So I just wanted to comment on that.
Yeah, no, I hear it. I hear it. I hear you.
And there is a Maya Moore shoe, just FYI. There are Maya Moore shoes.
There is a Maya, no, that I can
Oh, that you can wear.
I can wear. I'd wear the Air Maya. I'd wear it. I don't have a problem with it. I want good players gear. I don't discriminate. Hey, Julie, I want to ask you that as we wind this down, and you look at your ownership group and how it is changing the face of ownership in sports, and you touched on it before, but as you put that group together, did you intentionally say, I'm going to go out and get a bunch of bad women, and we're going to show the world something about owning a franchise?
I didn't have to say it. They came. I mean, we were talking about building a company where mission and capital can coexist, where we not only wanted to be champions on the field, but off the field, where we wanted to set higher expectations and not have a team of legacy sports people that only thought about something one way, or only done it one way, and were resistant to change or resistant to using social or digital and our players in a way that's never been done before. So as we started telling the story, we had people come to us that wanted to be a part of it. And the person that raised his hand very quickly was Alexis Ohanian. Alexis was the founder of Reddit, and he is the husband to Serena Williams, and he believes in leveling the playing field and pay equity for women. He also believes that the NWSL is an incredibly undervalued asset that has a huge opportunity for growth. When you look at the players and the platforms of these players, I mean, Alex Morgan has over 9 million Instagram followers.
Yes.
You add up every single team in the NWSL and maybe every single team in the WSL, I still don't think you're going to scratch her number, right? And so you have these incredible athletes that are yes, they're role models, but they're so much more than that. They're business people, and they're exceptional at what they do and the causes that they support. And the fact that, there's no team in Los Angeles and we have this sport that is the global sport, we have the ability to shine a light on that and use Angel City and these owners as a platform to push forward our mission, which is equality and impact. And so it wasn't our intent to have 30, 40 owners, but I am so thrilled that we do, because everybody brings something different to the table. Nobody got a special deal. It's all about working together to advance women athletics, and our mission for equality.
Hey, I want to ask you real quick. The big clubs in Europe have now begun to recognize their women's teams, and they're trying to elevate them in a real rush to catch up with the U.S. soccer team. Will you guys have a problem bringing over some of the big stars from Europe and other countries now?
Look, women, men, they want to play where there's the most competition, where they get treated the best, where there's the best environment. Nneka can tell you this. It's everything together. It's not just compensation. It's what's his practice facilities look like, and what's the philosophy of the coaches, and what's the fan base, and what's the support. And so we just have to build something that is better, right, than anything else that's out there. And I have huge confidence in this ownership group and our new commissioner that we can do that. So I expect to see at least as many international players on my squad as we can get.
Janelle, how are the international leagues viewed? And you're in Tokyo. How are the American leagues viewed by the international, the WNBA, and you look at the soccer league now? How are they viewed on a world stage? Because so many players from here go there to play.
Correct. I think they're viewed in a positive way. But to be honest with you, I mean, I wish I had access to WNBA games here. Mm-hmm. We just don't. So I'm hoping that, it gets broader and wider in terms of the media coverage. NBA was popular. Now it's more Major League Baseball. Mm-hmm. There's kind of these trends that are going on. And as we get to the, Olympics, getting closer to that, I'm sure the Olympic sports will be very popular. But, pretty much there's very limited visibility to some of the access to sports unless we, join a pay channel. Right. So right. That's just the current situation.
Thayer and Necca, I'm gonna let you both answer this question. What will the deal be like when it comes up next time for negotiation, the WNBA contract, and how will you expand it so that you can see more women's basketball? And I think, Julie, you should jump in on this too, of negotiating a TV contract with the networks. But Thayer, we'll start with you.
Oh, I'm gonna pass that right to Necca, since she's leading that charge as the president of the WNBA PA. And then I'll follow on and just sound smart too.
Okay.
I gotta say, I still have CBA hangover from the last one we just negotiated. To be honest, I think, well, if I'm there for the next one, I gotta be honest, Kevin. I think that what we've implemented in this current CBA that we're in right now, it's incredibly monumental, the things that we were able to negotiate. But quite frankly, I don't know what the next one holds, other than there's no going backwards, of course. And what we did this past CBA was certainly a catalyst for the change we want to see. And I'm hoping that is first and foremost reflected in the salary and compensation, and of course in visibility, and continued partnerships and organizations that can really contribute to the resources that we need to enhance the player experience and also our value and our worth.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and thanks for going first, Necca. I would also say, to be able to, and Kathy is such an incredible commissioner who has really come in and stepped in to embrace the player side, more so in the past. So I think that's been a great win, and I think Necca would agree with that. I will say that I think getting more exposure for the WNBA is going to be critical to continue its growth. Soccer has had an incredible rise because it has these monumental every 2 years between World Cup and then Olympics, these big moments where we're able to fall back in love with these women. The WNBA needs to have, as we've seen and has been proven, that they find success. The more that you're able to see them, the more people watch them, which is amazing. The other cool part about it is that the WNBA has done a great job at going out to get really, or to engage really great brands in the process of sponsors. So a sponsor like AT&T, who comes out and does just an incredible job at creating player engagement, at highlighting players, at demanding more out of the networks, that they show more, that they deliver more back to the players. So, that's just one of the brands. There are many other brands within the ecosystem, but I think as brands become more savvy, again, going back to kind of the consumer and who's actually watching and spending money, all the boats will rise.
Will there be a new deal negotiated by the end of, isn't the deal coming up? Next year you're renegotiating the deal?
No, we just signed a multi-year deal with both CBS and Twitch. So we've got a minimum of 3 years with both of them to air our games. With CBS, it's on CBS Network and All Access, and Twitch is here in the US, but also internationally. So the league coming into the 2020 season did an incredible job building these media rights partners so that we can grow exposure. And the leagues have, and the teams have the ability to double down in the local markets as well.
Ladies, I want to tell you something. You've been fantastic. It's been great talking to you. Real quick before we go, I'm going to give everybody the last word on what's next. What's the next move that has to happen? Janelle, you first.
As I mentioned, I think that we want to unlock the leadership potential of women athletes and, help them get to what's next. And in order to do that, there is no Title IX in the professional world. So it takes advocacy. It takes, people at the decision-making level to support them to get to the next level.
Now I have my presidential hat on. I'm going to say that what's next is to be honest, the credibility and the support from the men for the women. I think that that's something that is crucial to what needs to happen next. And we're on our way to kind of germinating those stages. So I'm hoping that can really change our future for us.
I will be honest, having sat in those meetings, as I said, I'm a little frustrated with us as men, and especially in the sports world, not acknowledging women's sports enough and the great games and moments that are going on. Thayer?
Yeah, I honestly think it's the rise of the woman. With economic dominance comes power, really, as consumers. And with power comes the ability to lead the conversation, to lead consumption, to lead viewership, to lead in all of these areas. And so I truly feel like, watch out world, here she comes. And that's a really exciting place to be.
Mm-hmm. Especially from your seat, where
Yes.
you'll get to do a lot of those deals. Julie?
Back to coverage and awareness, right? So it's getting in the top 10 plays of the game on SportsCenter, but it's also the lead-in shows to our game. And, not just having some personal lawyer, do their 30-minute infomercial before an NWSL game. We saw that during the Challenge Cup, and that doesn't help, right? So take the time and tell the stories. Build the hype, because the women deliver.
I hear you. Ladies, I appreciate you, and I appreciate what you're doing and how you are pushing the narrative, and not only the narrative, but the whole world forward. Thanks for joining us and taking the time out today. So let's take a few questions from the audience, folks who are watching out there. Here's the first one. I like this one. What is something you are excited about that you're seeing in the sports industry to support women's sports? Necca, you start that off.
Simple, more games on TV. That's what I'm very excited about. This season definitely proved that. So more people watching, more people seeing us, more fans, more engagement. There's more games on TV.
Janelle.
Yeah, as I mentioned, before, we see a good number of our athletes wanting to work in entrepreneurship. There's a lot of similarities between and attributes between on the playing field and entrepreneurship: confidence, single-mindedness, passion, leadership, resilience. They're starting to really do well in business and found their business.
All right, let's move on to the next question. I'll throw this one to Julie. What can men do and what should men do to support progress and equity in women's sports?
You know, show up and speak up, right? I mean, they're part of the solution. Men are part of the solution, women are part of the solution, and more generally, fans are part of the solution. If you want pay equity for women athletes, right, you have to be part of the solution. So what does that mean? You have to buy tickets, but then you also have to show up at the games so that when these games are aired on television and you see a packed stadiums, brands say, hey, I need to be supporting the Sparks, or I need to be supporting Angel City because my consumers are there, right? So you have to become part of the solution. You have to show up, you have to speak up, and also start recognizing how incredible these athletes are, and to, you know, all the male broadcasters start talking about them, put them on their top 10 list, start telling stories. I mean, it's not hard because the product is so good. Just pay attention.
Yeah, not only to all the male broadcasters, but to the broadcast sports networks. We need to see more women involved making the decisions, not just, you know, every once in a while you see a woman calling play-by-play or something like that. They need to be in the room making the decisions when those conversations are had in those meetings each and every day. Thayer, I'll ask you this one. Who are some of your mentors or heroes that have paved the way for you?
Gosh, where do I begin? You know, starting with my mother, who went back to college at 30, she went to Brown, joined the lacrosse team and made all New England, I think, at 30 years old, having been a mother of 4. So she is a total boss. She also introduced me to, we had the opportunity to meet this woman at the time. I had no idea who she was, Shirley Chisholm. And I was like, who is that lady? And the more I got to understand who she, I mean, I was completely floored by that. And that my mom actually knew who she was and knew her and stuff. But in today's world, there are so many incredible women in the world of sports, so many that I've been able to work with at Wasserman, but beyond that, people like Elizabeth Lindsay, who's one of our presidents at Wasserman, but Lindsay Colas at Wasserman, Casey is an amazing mentor, Wasserman. I've also, in my old life at L'Oreal, had some incredible bosses. And I've also had some bosses that were mentors in the wrong way that I said, nope, I don't ever want to be like that. And those were also really important. So I feel inspired, honestly, every day when I look around the sports industry by men and women. There's just a lot of really, really incredible people that work in this industry and are committed to driving both sides forward.
I love that. And I think a lot of young ladies should look at you as, you know, someone who is out there making a difference and making the deals, because they have to understand how important it is that many of these athletes, they will thrive if they're connected to someone like you.
Trying.
I hear you. All right. Julie, how can the sports industry be a leader for other industries when it comes to gender equality? And I know that I look over my shoulder and I see Jackie Robinson there and what he did for racial equality by just playing for the Brooklyn Dodgers and allowing African Americans to have a hero. So now how does that translate to gender equality?
Goes back to using our voices, right? To basically say that it's not okay anymore, but then also to provide a solution and a path forward. So this is what it's going to take. And this is how we get there. I mean, at the NWSL, we just want to get to a place where the players can make a living playing soccer and doing nothing else. And as Nneka said, it's not about playing 12 months out of the year. It's actually just playing in your league, doing what you need to do to be, you know, excellent at your job. And so, you know, what the U.S. Women's National Team did with the support of the U.S. Women's National Team Players Association was to use their voices and show the data and say, it's not okay. Now let's work together to solve the problem.
Necca, when do you think that'll end, that women don't have to play 12 months a year just to make ends meet?
I don't know. I don't quite know when it'll end. But to be honest, I'm not sure if it ending is necessarily what we want. Seeing that, you know, out of all of the leagues of team sports, I will say that basketball kind of leads the way as far as the amount of money that women can make overseas. So allowing that opportunity for other women, I think is also very important so that they can still very much play professionally and be compensated. Now, obviously, ideally, we want everyone playing here.
Right.
But there's a reason why we got to the point that we got to today. And so I don't think you have to throw the baby out with the water just yet. I think it's still very much an evolution.
But Necca, LeBron James doesn't have to go over and play in Brazil during the off season. Like
Right,
you don't see him like you don't see him going to Russia, like your teammates and you go overseas. So you don't see that. So come on now.
Yeah. I mean, we do want to see an end to it. We do. And I'd have to say in our last CBA, we negotiated terms in which kind of, push towards that direction, but not so much so that that opportunity is lost.
Mm-hmm.
But as the women on this panel, you see everyone's doing the work so that we don't have to make such life-changing decisions, one or the other. And we're working on it, but I think it really requires that allyship. I mean, Kevin, you got to go out there and tell everybody to get season tickets.
No,
we got two female sports teams in LA now.
Yeah, no, I'm telling you, I'm getting my Angel City tickets.
Sure.
Janelle, can
Yes.
you what advice would you give to a young woman who is beginning her career in the sports field?
Yeah, get a mentor. Create your network of advisors. Not one mentor serves all your needs, but mentors guide you through life decisions as well as career decisions.
Thayer, what kind of advice would you give to a young woman just starting out?
I would say don't overthink things. I would have a couple pieces of advice. Number one is be fearless. You're okay to be the only woman in the room. You're there for a reason. Number two, have an opinion. Number three, don't overthink that opinion. Just have it. And I would say, really for me, it was a journey of becoming more confident in my decision-making ability. And that was really rounded out by each job and taking kind of the things I didn't really want to learn and learning those the most, because it's those parts that I actually probably had to learn to be really proficient at in order to be better at the other part of my job. So kind of lean into the areas that feel like a little squeaky for you.
That's awesome. All right, ladies, we got to wrap this up. I got to let you go. You all are very busy, but thanks again for joining us. It was a great conversation, a great panel. Just want to take a moment to thank everyone for joining us during the LA84 Foundation and Play Equity Fund Youth Sports Summit, especially all the athletes, leaders, coaches, and moderators who helped make this summit a success. This really is a reminder that people power the movement, but it also starts with great leadership. And without great leadership, this doesn't happen at all. And that's why Renata Smril, the president and CEO of the LA84 Foundation Play Equity Fund, is here now to finish this up. Renata, we thank you for putting this together and making this happen. All these people show up because of you, and you have done something special. So we can't thank you enough.
Thank you, Kevin. And thank you for hosting this 2020 Youth Sports Summit and being the connective tissue through all 5 series of our conversation. And wow, what another powerful conversation around the progress we're making toward gender equity, an amazing panel of women, and what a great way to close out our 2020 summit. The Youth Sports Summit is a special event, and I look forward to it every year. It's where we bring together our community, leaders, organizations, corporate brands, athletes, coaches, teams, executives, all sharing with us the work that they are doing to level the playing field in sport, to ensure equal access for youth, to create employment opportunities in sport, to unlock the potential of women athletes around the world, to use sport as a voice for social justice. And 2020 has been a year with incredible challenges, but this year has also brought unimaginable powerful change. And 2020 put the power of sports center stage and continues to demonstrate to us what we can achieve when we work together. Be it through our partnerships on the Stay Active, Stay Strong program, where we were able to donate 120,000 pieces of play equipment and get them into the hands of kids during home confinement, or the athlete videos that we use to inspire youth in ways that they can stay active and play and move, which is so essential to our physical and our mental health, particularly during this COVID crisis. To our historic collaboration with the 11 professional sports teams, the Alliance LA, a 5-year initiative to use sport for social justice and to provide more access and opportunities to careers in sport, more leadership opportunities, not just on the field, but in the front office. And to our partnership with Angel City Football Club, LA's first professional women's soccer club coming to LA in 2022. We're helping them engage communities of color to be champions off the field through their philanthropic and community effort. The LA84 Foundation and the Play Equity Fund will continue to lead the fight for accessibility in sport by continuing this work and supporting meaningful programs and driving new opportunities for lifelong well-being to our youth. Ensuring access to sport and play opportunities for all kids has always been integral to our work and to our focus. It's been the focus of our partners who joined us in the Play Equity movement. But we've never felt a greater commitment to expand our mission, our work, our impact than today. From closing the play equity gap so that all kids, regardless of their zip code, have access to the positive benefits of sport, to bringing light to social justice issues leaving millions of youth on the sidelines, to providing leadership and mentorship opportunities, to creating more job opportunities in the sports industry for diverse talent. We are committed to expanding our effort. But real sustained change will take all of our efforts, requires allies. Change demands that everyone get in the game. And during our 5-part summit series, you've heard from athletes, elite athletes, legendary coaches, sport executives, community organizations, world leaders creating meaningful, impactful progress. And I'm hopeful that you've picked up on the common thread throughout these conversations, that no act is too small to make a difference, and that each day we must all strive to create change for the betterment of all of us. I hope you left or you're leaving with more awareness and ways you can get involved. I'm hopeful that you've learned that what matters most is not how we're different, but how we can come together to use the power of sport to cultivate a better world. I challenge you to get involved. I dare you to put your words into action. Join our Play Equity movement. Reach out to an organization or a corporation that was featured during our summit, or visit theplayequityfund.org, and we'll help to connect you to a cause or an organization who would be grateful for your help, who would be grateful for your partnership. We all at the LA84 Foundation, the Play Equity Fund, we believe deeply in the power of sport to transform lives, or as Nelson Mandela famously said, the power of sport to change the world. The world needs all of us now. Our kids in the margin need you. And I'm confident that together we can make the world a better place, one kid and one community at a time. Thank you.